Hey folks, it's Nate, and I'm in the garage for a change, which is weird, right? All these quick casts and trips to Vegas and whatever, I thought I'd never get back in here. Today, I'm finally doing my steering. So yeah, anyway, finally I'm doing the steering. So stay tuned, I'm going to show you how to remove the stock steering, probably in fast forward because it's going to be time consuming. And then I'll show you how to install the off-road only UTurn steering system. Remember, folks, that if you like what I do here, don't forget to like and subscribe. Hit me up on Patreon if you want to help fund this crazy endeavor. See me. Step number one is to get the Jeep all jacked up. Put down the camera. To get the Jeep jacked up and supported by stands. I don't love where this stand ended up, but I give it a good shaking and rattling, and everything seems okay. It's sturdy enough. I also have those other stands underneath the frame, which should help out. So step one is to remove the old steering. This should be easy enough, right? We hope. You can see right here is my bend. It's not a terrible bend. I've driven it a little bit since it happened, but not much. And really, I don't like having it bent like that. So let's replace it. See that? For all you that missed it, I basically took out a bunch of these cotter pins, which hold in place a bunch of these castle nuts. Castle nuts are what keep these rod ends from backing out in your steering, which would be a really bad idea, right? Once they're out, you use a pickle fork, as you saw. It's a little oily and greasy at this point, but it was nice and clean when I started. You use this guy, you get it in there around the around like that. You pound on it, it separates, and this comes out. Now this one you can see, I took this apart. This is on the steering when I got it, the ORO UTurn. This was on a pitman arm that was still on the steering, and I boogered up that boot. I'm really hoping I can salvage the boot that I just took off, and it's compatible with this. I really don't know if it is. If it's not, I think this rod end is shot, and I'm going to have to replace it, which I really, really don't want to have to do. But if I have to, I have to. Right? Right. Okay, so now that the old steering is off, I've cleaned things up a little bit. Simply by wire brushing the knuckles a little bit. Now, nothing crazy, just a little. The next step is to take these new brackets they've given us and install them on the knuckles. So here's a nice look at the... My shop light here is costing a little too much light. Okay, so you see this bracket. This goes on the knuckle. This one's the driver's side. It goes on like this, and then the steering bolts to that, and the old knuckle bolts into that hole. This is the passenger side. This is the one I had to replace. Okay, now you see this here. This is the old passenger side knuckle. See the booger welds on there? That was a trail fix. And this is a This plate is for like a flat top Dana 44, and obviously I don't need that because I don't have the flat top Dana 44. I think that contributed to the breakage. I think it put strain where it shouldn't have or something, and that's how we ended up with this nasty crack. So I just replaced this bracket with that one. This one is the one that I fixed up. This had a bracket just like that on it, and you can see there's no sign of it anymore. I'm pretty proud of that. I cut off that bracket, ground it nice and clean, primed it up, painted it up, and you almost can't tell the difference between that and the new factory one. So yeah, I'm pretty proud of that. So they go on the inside of the knuckle there. See the bolts there to hold the bearing, the outer in, the wheel bearing. Those come out. This goes over top of them, right? And then you put the bolts back in and tighten them down good. Then this gets bolted into the old steering location, right? So that's basically how that goes. Once those are on, the new steering mounts, let's see, they go like this. The new tie rod goes from this to that, and I think the new drag link goes to this, but I'll look that up before I install everything, obviously. So yeah, this should move the steering up a little bit. Not much, just a bit. And it gives me a nice, what do they call that? Inverted T instead of inverted Y? Cool. Okay, so my next step is to install these two brackets on the knuckles. Not the knuckles, these. Here, the steering. Basically they mount, let's see, like this. No, that's hard to see because I'm standing on my own light. Hold on. They go like that. See those two rear holes? These two bolts that go through and into the hub assembly, and then this hole here gets mounted where the old steering used to be. And then the tie rod goes from here across to the other side to the other bracket on the other end, which is laying right there. That's the one I had to order. So, yep, that's my next step. Get this guy there, and the same thing on the other side. So, okay, so the way the instructions read, you basically line this thing up. See, I've taken these two bolts that hold the wheel bearing on out. You line this on top of the knuckle, where the old tie rod used to mount. That goes on top. And then these two line up with the holes and these bolts go into. Yeah. Put these in here. It says to just sort of start them. The whole thing's in place. Not that hard to do. It's all machined steel, so it's pretty easy to get started again. Just like that. Then, got these 1/2-inch bolts that come with the kit. Right, now here's how the bolts look. There's a bolt with an eye in it for a cotter pin, and there's this crush sleeve and washers. Go washer, crush sleeve. This goes up through the bottom of where the old steering linkage was mounted. I don't know if you can see it from here, like this. Now the instructions say, oh, I'm going to have some paint mucking up this hole a little bit because I just painted this thing. Give it a little bit of a tap, should go right through. There we go. So the instructions say, put that through there, this goes on top. Now this bracket is the one that's used and fixed, so I don't think this is true. However, the instructions say is that when you mount this, the holes will be slightly, they'll be lined up, but there'll be like a gap. because the surfaces you're mounting to are not quite flush. They said that once you tighten these bolts in, the steel will conform to what it has to be attached to, or tightened up against, the face that it's against, and everything will be fine. They say that this will not affect the strength of this plate. Now, like I said, this one's used, so it kind of is already conformed. So I'm just going to tighten this up, and that should be that. The other side is brand new, so we'll see if it's a different case there. So I'm going to get this tightened up, and then I'll check back in. Alright, and there we have it. Mounted. So I may take this nut back off and put some Loctite on here. It just feels like the right thing to do. The instructions didn't say it. I'm going to reread them to be sure, but it feels like this should never, ever, ever come loose, because this is going to be the rigidity which makes my steering safe. So I'm going to pull this nut back off, I think, put some Loctite on it, tighten it back on. But otherwise, there you go. There you have it. That's how this thing mounts. Driver's side. Passenger side should be the same deal, just that this bracket is slightly different. There's an extra hole, I think, back here. This whole thing is shaped a little differently, and that's for the drag link that comes down from the pitman arm. So I will do that next, and I'll probably record the install so you can see it happen. Okay, I just installed this, which I just showed you, and I was talking about possibly Loctiting this. Well, I reread the directions, and they said specifically in the last statement in the paragraph talking about how to install this thing, do not Loctite it. So I'm not going to Loctite it. I think the next step is to put the cotter pin in here, which I'm going to do, and then I think this side is done. So the instructions say to install the drag link next, not the tie rod. I'm going to do the tie rod next for one reason. And this light is bright. This is the bushing that I screwed up. So, or not bushing, boot I screwed up. I tried to pull the boot off of another one of the rod ends, and you can tell they are just different. Next is the drag link, as you see laying here. Now, the instructions say, because when this kit comes brand new, these ends are not installed. Man, this thing's heavy. These are already installed, as you can tell. It says to install them and shorten it up to 48 inches. Well, I just measured it, and it's already 48 inches. So, all I'm going to do is clean up these threads a bit, because I have Newcastle nuts to go on them, and get this thing in place, and hope for the best. Hope I don't regret installing this first. I don't think I will. Alright, here goes. Alright, so I went to a couple auto stores trying to see if I could get a replacement for this boot. Like I said, the one I pulled off of the other rod end didn't work. So, no one carried just the boot for the Moog. I also didn't have the part number. I could have ordered one, but it was going to take a few days, so I decided that's not what I want to do. The other problem I'm having here is this is seized. I mean, 100% seized. I have tried every tool in my arsenal. I cannot get this jam nut loose. I can't get this to thread off. So this is unadjustable. This adjustment is for the center, the steering wheel center. So what I'm going to have to do is depend on this for adjustment. Set it, call it done, and then hope for the best. If it's off, I'm going to have to replace this and this rod end just so that I can get these apart, because I cannot find a way to get this apart. I tried heat. I tried a pipe wrench that's like 3 freaking feet long. You can see the marks on the jam nut from it. It will not come loose. I almost broke my workbench trying to get this thing off. It didn't work. So, that's that. I'm going to have to live with it the way it is. If I tighten this all the way in, and then this jam nut will turn. If I tighten this all the way in and lock it in, the steering wheel looks like it's almost straight. So hopefully, I'm going to adjust the toe in on the tie rod. I'll show you how to do that in a minute. And then I'm going to put this on at whatever seems right. And if it's not quite right, I'm going to live with it. And eventually I'm going to replace this rod end and this adjuster all in one, which will mean taking this end of the steering back off again, replacing these two pieces and putting it back in. Some of these rod ends, while they're in decent shape, the bushings all seem like over the years they have been replaced, and some of them don't quite match up right. The one on this end that I was showing you earlier in the video, the one on the passenger side, that one I don't think it's going to seal. And I'm going to have to grease that often to make sure it doesn't get crud in there. And eventually I'm going to have to replace that rod end. So here's the replacement boots that I bought. 2 different sizes. We're going to see what works and what doesn't. I get the feeling this is going to be the right one, but it's going to be too tall, which means it's going to end up smushed. And I hope that's not a problem. I could always cut it down, I suppose. But I don't know if that's a good idea either. This one might do the trick. But it's really, really narrow. And narrow means it isn't going to seat right. So this is for the Pitman arm end. Let's see here. And that might work once it's in there, but I mean, dang it. The original one seated over the outer edge. This goes over the outer edge, but you can see it's really too tall, and it's the opening for the shaft of this thing is way too big. It fits toward the bottom of the shaft because you can see they're tapered. But yeah, it's just way too tall. I suppose it could be compressed, but I just don't think that's the right solution. I think I'll use this one. Hope for the best. I don't like it. So any of you in the comments that are going to tell me that's the wrong fitting or the wrong boot, you are correct. Congratulations. You win internet points. I'm going to make it work. Because like I said, this whole thing is so seized, it's basically trash. It's going to get me back on the road, though. And I'll save up some money, because this is like a $50 rod end. And this is probably another 20, 30, 40, 50 bucks. I haven't looked it up yet. You're looking at 100 bucks worth of parts right here. I'm not going to spend that right now. Plus, I'm going to get the dang Jeep back on the road. This is what I'm going to do for now. I don't love it. But it's what I have to do. So, live with it, Internet. So that's that. Alright, I'm going to get that back on the end of the drag link. And we'll go from there. Now the position this ends up in matters only because of this bend. I don't know if you can see the bend all that way. Move back. This bend here, right? So if you don't get it right, if this is tilted down too far, this bend contacts here. And, well, that's no good. So basically what you want to do is get it up in there and then twist the bar so that the bend is not about to contact the tie rod, and then tighten this jam nut. The instructions say to put all this in as far as it'll go, and then put it up in there, and then you use that to, and then center your steering wheel, and use this adjustment to straighten out the wheels. And then once the wheels are straight, use this to adjust toe in. I'm going to do that as best I can once it's all together, but like I said, without being able to adjust that, I'm not going to get this just right. You can see that boot is just not perfect. Not at all. But, whatever. It is what it is. Once I tighten that down, it's going to crush that boot a little bit, which might just do the trick. Guess we'll see. So, where's my ratchet? Actually, no, I need my 3/4 inch ratcheting wrench. It's laying here somewhere. I took quite a bit of elbow grease and loosened up these jam nuts already. So basically, I broke this all free already. So at this point, I'm just going to try to adjust the toe in, and which is for the ORO U-turn. The instructions say to make the front and rear the same. No 1/8 inch toe in like on the stock Wrangler. And they explain why that is. It's because of the system, the way it's set up. On the TJ, the inverted Y that it comes with, as the suspension loads and unloads, this geometry actually changes. And that 1/8 inch that you normally tow in is accommodated for when the vehicle is in motion because of the way the suspension sits while it's at ride height. Not ride height, but yeah, ride height. With the ORO U-turn, since this is solid and it's not that Y, this doesn't change based on your suspension articulation. It just stays where it is, and that's good. So you don't need to tow in an 1/8 inch like you do standard. They say to make it equal front and rear, and I'll show you what I mean in a minute. But first of all, I need to clean up a little bit and put the tires on, because that's part of the situation here. Okay, so I'm attempting to do a basic alignment here. All right, so you can see tires are on, suspension or the steering is all put together. I have these T irons, what I didn't call them, strapped to the outside of the tires. They extend to the front and the rear of the tire, and basically the goal here is to get the measurement from the iron to the iron on the front and rear the same. The way to do that is by spinning, where's my hand? Spinning that bar right there, okay? There's threaded ends at either end. That's what those jam nuts are for. I've loosened the jam nuts, and basically what I need to do is bring them in quite a bit at the moment, because the front and rear are off by about 1.5 inches. Now that doesn't directly translate. I think the measurement in the center bar there is going to be a lot less than 1.5 inches inward, though you can see at the ends there I have lots of play. I'll have to move the jam nuts out a little more if I want to go far enough, but basically there's plenty of room for adjustment there. So I'm going to start bringing it in, and we'll see how it goes. Okay, so I did some things there without telling you what I was doing. See how this tape measure is strung up now? This is exactly how they said to do it in the directions, but I couldn't do it with the pieces I was using because they don't have a flat edge on them. They had these little slots in them though, and I was able to hook the tape measure into the slot perfectly. So I'll show you here. I'll show you right now. See, the tape measure is hung there. There's another one back there. If you can see that, it's hung in the same way. And the concept here is that it hangs there, And now I don't have to remeasure. Every time I move the thing. So I just have to get up, look at them, sit back down, do my thing. Awesome. Now I got a tape measure in my way, but oh well. (71 1/16). Ah! I went too far. Luckily, it's easy to fix. (71 1/8). 71 1/8. Alright folks, there you have it. As close as you're going to get. Got 71 1/8 on both ends. Now, tighten up the jam nuts. Okay, so the next thing that has to be done is get my steering stabilizer back on. So what I figure is I will turn the wheels all the way to the passenger side, mount the stock steering stabilizer back up with its bolt that I removed on the way, while I was taking the steering off, and then I'll mount this plate that goes up on here. So I don't know if you can see that well. There you have it, folks. The install of the off-road only U-turn steering system on a Jeep Wrangler TJ with a Dana 30. This kit supposedly works on the Dana 44 as well, and in fact the guy who gave it to me had it on a Dana 44, so apparently it's the same deal. This is a chromoly steering kit, which is meant to improve the strength and longevity of the Jeep TJ steering system. And I'm looking forward to, hopefully, many years of off-road use with this particular steering setup. I'm happy that it gets rid of that inverted Y because I never really liked that, and those links were so freaking tiny. So we'll see how this works out. I will record, hopefully, a follow-up video eventually. Looks like the Jeep is going to be going back to my daily driver for a while. So I'm going to get some on-road usage with this thing as well as off-road. So look forward to that, folks. All right, so until next time, thanks for watching. Remember to hit that like and subscribe button because that helps. If you like what I'm doing here and you want to help support me, please feel free to look me up on Patreon, patreon.com/SWBCrawler. I don't care what you want to send me or if you don't send me anything at all, but if you want to send me something, it's definitely helpful. So thanks for watching, folks, and I'll see you next time. Hey folks, just want to say two things about my off-road only U-turn install and where I got it and whatnot. I have two people to thank. 1. Kyle from Offroad Consulting. If it weren't for him, I wouldn't have the dang kit. He happened to have it sitting around in his garage. When I bent my steering, he was more than happy to send it my way. I'm not saying Kyle's a great place for free Jeep parts, so don't go writing him asking for free parts. However, he's a great guy to work for, and I appreciate that he was willing to hand this off to me as the moment he heard that I had bent my steering. Number 2 is Alex, I believe his name was, from Offroad Only. I worked with him to get the parts that I needed. He knew exactly what I needed. He knew exactly what caveats to watch out for. He asked me to send him pictures of the kit that I had, so he was sure I got the right parts. And once I had the money and the information to order the parts, they were here so fast. So big shout out to Offroad Only. Great customer service, great fast shipping, and from what I can tell, great product. So like I said, stay tuned, folks, and I will have after I get a couple thousand miles on this thing, I'll have a review on how well it works on the road and on the trail, and, look forward to that. So, thanks.